Good evening. Today is October 4th. It is now 5:37 p.m. This is the Orange County IDA Audit Committee. We have present this evening. If you would please.
Sure, absolutely. I'll do a roll call.
Yes.
Susan Walski.
Here.
Dean Tamburri. Here. Michael Torelli.
Present.
Vincent Oda. Yes. All right. So we have 3 members of our committee, 4-person committee. So we do have a quorum. Mr. Tamburri is kind of at large here, participating. Myself, Bill Fioravanti, CEO of the IDA. We also have 2 of our consultants with us. Of course, Dean Brady from 88 Studios handling our live stream, and Shannon Manisi from RBT. Okay, Shannon, thanks for joining us.
If we could say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Absolutely.
Our flag is in the parking lot.
Pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have 2 items on the agenda. The first is about our audit. This is the audit committee, of course. As you know, we put out an RFP looking for potential new vendor for our audit, our annual audit. We have used JGS, otherwise known as Jolson, Giordano and Siegel, for many years, and they were acquired by PKF O'Connor Davies. We put this RFP out several weeks ago, but I did hear from a number of local CPAs who said they just didn't have time, given this time of the year, and to be able to properly really respond. This was the only submission then from PKF/JGS. So I did ask Shannon to review it. She certainly guided us through it. She helped me put the RFP together and such. So really wanted to get her take. But I'm thinking, before she goes on, I'm thinking that our options are reissuing this, awarding, with your approval, obviously, awarding the 2022 financial audit to JGS or PKF O'Connor Davies at present, and then reissuing the RFP so that. And we put the RFP up for this year and next year, because if we name someone new, we want to, you don't want to keep someone have to reinvent the wheel each year. But I would think that if we award it to JGS, PKF, it would just be for 2022, and then we put out another RFP, and if it's them or someone else, we can decide at that point for 2 years.
Yeah, no, it does.
Okay, Shannon, if you just kind of give us your take after reviewing the RFP and any other guidance.
Well, I mean, the whole point of you going out to RFP was to see if you were getting, the best service, and you were looking for others to bid. So I don't know if you'd be doing a disservice by not waiting for other bids to see what other firms could offer you. I do want to make a note that this doesn't include, or at least based on the responses, it doesn't include the investment piece that JGS used to do for you. Right? Because JGS used to do an analysis on your investments, I believe.
I don't know if I've seen that.
We've never seen that.
We wanted that, but if they did, I wasn't aware of it and haven't seen it.
Okay. I thought that they issued a separate report last year for that, but I wouldn't have access to all of that. So, in that, they might not have, I don't know, but that would be my only thing to question in regards to what they've provided, because, I mean, based on their response, they're providing just the audit of the 2 entities.
Right, which I think was all that was in the RFP.
Right.
Do we have language about consistency? Yeah.
I don't remember offhand. I knew that you were going to modify the template that we provided you. So, and I mean, it's just they responded. It's just whether you would like to have others to compare it against would be the only thing.
Yeah. So I'll be more clear. We had a deadline on there of, I believe it was September 15th. So,
okay. When did you actually issue it?
I think we issued it like a month earlier or something like that. We got right after the board meeting.
The day after the board meeting.
Exactly.
The day after the board meeting. Yeah, so there's multiple deadlines in September, so that might be why you didn't get it. There's also an October 15th deadline. The next deadline, I don't think would be factored into any municipalities. So you would still have time to issue another RFP if you wanted to for the 22 audit. Yes, you are coming up against the end, but if you wanted to, you could. So
my concern is that we normally started by now. Now we're really getting going this time of year, so the fear is waiting for others or extending. the
you're
time
normally
that we
started
would
by
have.
this time of year? What do you mean by that?
The audit, they've begun, working on the audit by now. We've usually, gave last year, we had communication that, of course, they said last year that they did a half year. They did work for half of the year, and then they had to complete it. For some reason, it was still kind of, took longer than expected, even though that they said they had half of it done already. So that was just the concern, is that there's not enough time to finish the audit, to prepare it properly, if they started much later than now. But
I don't know what they would be starting other than maybe some cutoff testing, because technically your numbers aren't final until December 31st. So I'm a little,
we also issue all of the, trying to think what the confirmation letters we call it, right, to all projects and such. They have to give us, and I seem to recall that was around this time last year that we started issuing that.
okay, so they were putting it out for the conduit stuff and the employee data. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's really however you guys would like to proceed. They did respond, so you do have something to go off of. And you could just respond and say, we didn't receive any other responses, so we're going to award this on a 1-year basis instead of the 2 that was noted in the RFP.
Kind of what we're thinking, and it was late last year, and they had a couple explanations for that. One of them being the merger or the acquisition by PKF. Specifically, they said that normally the quality control piece of phase of the audit was done in-house with JGS, with one person in an office next door, and it's usually next door to the person that conducts the audit. And with PKF coming on board right around the time of our audit, that it had to go to a completely different location for that quality control review, and that delayed them. I expect that would not be the case now, that they're fully on board there. They know how we felt about the way the audit came out last year, so if we're awarding it for 1 year, I'm honestly expecting different results, more timely results, and for us to be more satisfied with the audit.
Okay.
That's my thinking. Anything stand out in their response that we need to know about that looked out of line in any way?
No, I mean, I did notice that the team that they're assigning as in charge of this is different than the team that you've had in the past. So just note that. But I don't, there's nothing that stands out. They're a very large company, so.
One of the largest probably in the region, right?
Yeah, they have a lot of offices, so.
Do we know that, the new team or whatever, are they focusing on this type of audit as opposed to, the other groups?
So this is the government sector that did respond to this. So that is the sector that you want. It is out of their Harrison office, not any of their Newburgh locations. So that is the office that I do believe that their quality control review is done out of. So when they were saying they need to send it to the quality control, it is in that office. But I don't know if that bottleneck would be any different this year than last year, because it will still be the same players. You just won't have the same people in the field that I believe you've had in the past based on who responded to the RFP.
But there's no internal restrictions for them to speak to each other, right? So that they can.
No, there's none of that. No. So when I presume the merger would be as any other merger acquisition would go, that, the team has relayed everything and everybody's fully transparent. But I would suggest that you have a pre-audit meeting with the team if you're going to award it, and explain to them the issues that you ran into last year and what your expectation is and your deadlines.
And the only thing I was gonna add, I think, because it's a different team, I mean, if we went with somebody else, it would be a completely different team.
Right.
So that will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Either way, we're starting with, you know, fresh minds and fresh eyes on our product.
True. I'm just worried about the timing. I just don't want
I don't
that
blame
to happen like
Yeah,
happened last year. Never again, right?
So I have a couple of questions. Obviously, this is required by New York State,
The audit?
Yeah.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it gets sent to whom?
We sent it to, input it in the Paris reporting, which is, the reporting system that the authority's budget office monitors, and the Office of State Comptroller as well.
And all that's public.
It is.
All that is transparent.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Second
Yeah, you can go to
question.
the ABO and filter by your entities and go up and see what you have filed.
Is there a deadline?
Yes.
And what is our fiscal year? Is our fiscal, I think someone just said September 31st?
No, our fiscal year is January to December.
Yeah.
So our audit is gonna go from January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022.
That is the period that will
Oh.
be audited, yes.
So it can't be completed till after that. Is there a date that is due?
There
It is
I
due
can
March
verify.
31st to the ABO. Your Paris and your financial statement need to be submitted.
March
Now,
31st?
How frequently are we,
I'm sorry, one more time.
how
Doctor.
frequently do the audit?
We're audited every year, every financial year, yeah.
For the government's accountability.
We post it to our website.
I'll check right now, but I do believe it's on our public documents, page of our website. Pretty sure our
I'm
audit.
trying to make a point that everything we're doing here is
For everybody to see.
for everyone to see.
No doubt about it.
Laundry hangs in the yard proudly.
What about the fees?
Yeah, that was my question. The bill for the year, is that similar or higher or lower than last year's bill?
Copy, can I borrow that?
They want, 15.5 for this year and 16 for next year.
Yeah, that's all in the same range of what it was,
Okay.
what we budgeted. Right after.
Okay.
Shannon, as a CPA in this arena, is that in line? I see.
Yeah, you have two entities that you're auditing essentially. So yeah, that's definitely in line. I don't know if the fee lines up exactly with last year. So what I would suggest is that you get your engagement letters that you had with JGS prior to their merger, because it would have been under JGS, and see exactly what they detailed out for their services in regards to comparing it to what PKF has put in their proposal response, just to make sure that you're getting apples to apples.
Okay. Right. This committee, of course, can't approve, naming them as a vendor, so we'd look for a recommendation, a vote to recommend to them, and I'll verify all this before the 19th agenda.
I was just say, my thought process is to make sure we're paying for the same services that were provided last time, even though it's a different company. And then it's not lesser services, if it's more about it, but it shouldn't be a lesser service. My suggestion would also be that it only be for the 2022 audit, not for the 2023 audit, that we put out a new RFP in, after October meeting, and give them 60 days to respond, because they are kind of crazy now, getting everybody's end of year taxes in order.
Yep.
And perhaps if we cast, a wider net with a bigger time frame, it will give other companies merely the time to respond.
I imagine that is the case, because I did hear from a number of firms that, we're interested, we just can't get it done.
Right, and 3 weeks is a pretty narrow time frame to put this type of presentation together,
Sure.
especially if you don't have it handy.
Sure is, yeah. Shannon, how about timing? When do you think is the best time to reissue it so that firms have adequate, time to respond, and it's not in the worst season for that?
You can, so with the government sector, there's deadlines, March 31st, depending, so all the public authorities are March 31st. Anybody else that deals with municipalities, you know, if they're fire districts, are June 30th. So there may not be a optimum time to do it, but I think if you do it near when your deadline is to submit, so around March 31st, and give them a bigger window. Give like a 2 or 3 month window, and that would still put you to the beginning of the summer, and they would have ample time to respond. You can also cast a wider net by using a platform called BidNet. So anybody that subscribes to it, it pushes out to them. So you might get more responses if you utilize a service like that. As
Do we have to
opposed to you
subscribe to
just contacting, you know, particular CPA firms.
Do we have to subscribe to BidNet ongoing in order to use it for this?
Honestly,
purpose?
I don't know. I don't know all the details on it, but I can find out.
And I'll look into it as well. Issue around March, you're thinking?
Yeah, because, you know, that's when you're wrapping up your that would be your current audit wrap up, and then you're planning for the next year. So it would give ample time. And then that allows for any deadlines that might fall within that window.
So we'd be looking tonight for a motion to recommend to the full board of directors that we award the 2022 audit work to PKF O'Connor Davies.
Provided that the answers
Yes,
regarding services have been, are acceptable.
absolutely.
So you want me to put that out there?
Please.
I'd like to put a motion on the floor that we accept PKF O'Connor Davies for the 2022 audit season, subject to receiving satisfactory responses for the fees that are charged are similar to the services provided in the past.
Motion? Rodox?
Need a second? I put the motion,
Oh, you did put the motion, I'm sorry.
Motion.
Okay, I didn't know if you were looking for that. Okay, motion by Sue Walsky, second by Dr. Vincent O'Donnell. Very good.
and do we need a formal roll
I
call,
don't think we
Ken,
need a
or
roll
just an
call
aye?
necessarily. Exactly.
Right, this is just give the board the authority to move on it.
So, I'll let you.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Terrific, excellent. Any other questions for Shannon before she goes to wrangle with her boy?
No, but thank you so much for your insight. It's very much appreciated.
Not a problem. If you guys have any follow-up questions, you can always email me.
Okay, Shannon,
All right.
thanks as always.
Have a good night. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, only other item on the agenda is, because it is handled by this committee per our local labor policy, is reviewing a waiver request from Walgreens. Of course, it's a project that you improved the sales tax exemption for in the town of Newburgh on Route 300. That site is currently under construction, as you know. If you drive by, you can certainly tell that really coming together now. When they applied for incentives to the IDA for this project, they explicitly only requested sales tax exemption in order to just focus on this high-tech robotic picking equipment for pharmaceuticals, and they were looking for the sales tax exemption on that. So that was just over $3 million that they'll save as a result of the approvals that you issued last year. And we did know, they warned us right from the beginning, this equipment have a warranty, that in order to maintain that warranty, that it actually needs to be installed by an approved vendor. Actually, it sounds like the company, and I found out today from Walgreens that the company is called IA, lowercase I, capital A, and their website is iarx.com. I just found this out, about an hour ago, so I'm going to do some research there. And I did, at an event this morning, I actually met a representative from the Carpenters Union. And he was aware of Walgreens and their application and exactly the scope of it. And he really suggested that he felt that we could find some local labor that either could do it or do a component of it. And as I said to him, I say to this group, I want to fully exhaust any of those possibilities. So I pledged to the Carpenters Union, anyone else that would come to me saying that they could identify local labor for this. And I made it very clear to Walgreens and the consultants that I've worked through this, that we're looking to exhaust every possibility there. That let's do our due diligence. If there's any possibility that we can find a local group that could do all or part of this work, why would we not do that? That's really in accordance. So they've submitted the waiver, certainly looking for any discussion, any questions on it, any further information you'd like me to ascertain. But for the most part, I don't think we're ready to actually approve it because, again, we want to do that due diligence now that the question has been raised as to whether or not we can find local labor. Any discussion we have tonight, at least so we can, have an informed discussion and I can take any of that and as I do my due diligence.
So my thought process on this would be to reach out to AI or IA, RX, find out who their authorized installers are, and be comparative to companies and unions in the area that may have similar type of experience, and what would it take for them to get onto their authorized list of installers.
Right.
So this way we're partnering our workforce, not just for this project, but for future similar projects that may come into the area.
It's also, I mean, there doesn't have to be this, the company comes in, who's partial, it doesn't have to be, I mean, there's a percentage, if they can do it, and I know, I'm sure there's a lot of work that they can do, to all the tracking system. He's shown he's done it in the past.
Right.
Yeah, the Carpenters Union gentleman, he did provide a lot of backup of some, what appears to be some very sophisticated equipment that they have the
Well, that's the thing, it may just be a fact that our local companies and unions just have not qualified with this company.
Exactly.
Which is a simple fix.
John Montgomery had showed, over in Dutchess County that he has done some of the racking systems over there and proved the idea that they can do it. Again, I don't know the complexity of this one or whatever, and that's what we have to, if we use local labor on it, I think it would be an advantage for.
Sure.
Yeah, like I said, if we can get our local laborers, whether they be union or corporations, approved with this particular vendor, I can see the benefit down the line.
In the future, sure. Definitely. So that was my question that I asked John, was how sophisticated were these systems? If it was just racking systems, I understand that, most qualified laborers could do that work. But this is highly robotic, highly calibrated, so it's sensitive in that regard. But then he responded with what he sent me. I quickly learned that they've done things of that caliber. So, so far the response from Walgreens is, yes, we want to cooperate. We want to support local labor as much as possible. We just want to make sure we guarantee the warranty on this equipment, obviously. Talking $24 million just in the equipment.
No, and like I explained, because it's pharmaceutical, it's probably very temperature sensitive. It's not just.
Which I hadn't thought of for sure. So,
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, please.
The first one, this new board has seen as a waiver request. Do we know how waiver requests were done in the past and the timeline? Because do we have to worry about timing?
What do you mean, worry about timing?
Like, is there anything in our policy that says we have to do it? Like, if the request comes in, do we have to make a decision within 30, 60, 90 days, 120? Is there like a time frame
I
to
haven't
it?
seen any language on that. Just in the local labor policy, it does explicitly state that the audit committee not only reviews, but approves or denies, meaning that you don't recommend to the board of directors that they approve it, you actually approve it here. That's how it's written out, something we could probably take a look at, certainly.
Do we know that? I mean, to Mike's point, do we know what their installation is, timing of?
Building's up.
Yes, the shell is up.
The shell's up. There's a lot more to go.
Exactly.
It's
The
not like
shell's up, and then what they've made clear today, they're gonna be building out the interior. And again, they just confined what came before us just on that equipment, not on any of the other build out. They had originally talked about that, maybe $6 million in build up. They changed their application. What they formally submitted to us was just on the equipment. So to go back
So
to.
the rest of the project has not received any benefits,
Correct.
and, the local municipality, got paid from the applicant, offset some of the sales tax.
They have not paid that yet because Walgreens didn't want anything to be perceived as, unfortunately, as a payoff or something like that. Once everything is closed, they have an agreement in place and a dollar amount in place. They just don't want to issue anything until, the things are closed here. But to your question before about timing and such, the way the process normally works, from my understanding, looking at some of the past projects, is that the local labor monitoring consultant, if it would be land or felons or engineering, it's when the process is going on, construction's happening, that's usually when they'll get a request for a waiver on seal or whatever, it might some other specialty work, and then they come to us. Really, I didn't see anything about timing or a deadline. It's just that they, if they're not granted it, they're not able to do that work. So they do wait on us. And
So that brings my next question, which was question number 2, was have we assigned a local labor monitoring yet?
the reason we have not, but it's because we haven't closed on this project yet, frankly. In that closing process is really like we did with West Warwick, 1, 2, and 3, the battery storage project. We are assigning that to land, actually. So they're going to get that. They got started with us first, so they're going to be doing that. We haven't done that yet with Walgreens, so it's a little out of the normal process.
So if we haven't closed, can we vote on this if it's not a closed project? Or is it something that do we need to get Sue's opinion on? Or
I
anything like
did
that?
get Sue's opinion. I just want to see exactly how she.
We do it like, not in lieu of, but like, say, once it closes, then this will be effective or something like, I don't know what the proper legal way to do it.
What is the time? It's gonna, we can say close, closing in what?
It was approved by the board, but then I think they have to do an actual document execution.
Okay.
I hate using the term close because it sounds like I'm closing. There's a document execution, and then it's an actual legal agreement between the IDA and then the applicant, and then, they can start applying for and receiving the proper stuff. But
Our general counsel's response was that there's no problem in approving it now, but they can't use it until we close it.
they can't use it. Makes sense.
What is that time? Do we know what?
I know they were anxious to close until they hit the snag at the state level. So I think as soon as they resolve that and they know everything's worked out, then they're going to be pushing to try and get everything closed and move the
They
project.
want to open up that facility.
They do.
So is there anything that we can do to solve this issue, so when we do close, that there's, or do we just wait for the closing and then do it?
No, I think for example, if we had heard from the carpenters union and we've vetted all that, we've, done our due diligence trying to see if there's any, possibly use local labor, I think you could vote and approve it tonight, for sure. I don't think there's any issue there. I just think we're all in agreement that we're not gonna rush because they don't need it tomorrow necessarily. I'm gonna start tomorrow on this, I've started today on the due diligence, and I'll come back to you. And what we may do, because this is audit committee, again, local labor policy dictates that I would see us not waiting another 6 months. It's only twice a year we have this committee. We'd hold a special audit committee meeting just to deal with this.
And I think that's what we need to do. We need to get those answers ASAP, because I don't like to keep people waiting for an answer. I don't think that's
I'm with you.
fair.
No.
But they know what we're doing. I laid out the steps, how we want to exhaust this. There was no pushback. There was no, oh, well, you said this, or we thought that. They totally understand that, and we'll follow that.
I'm most certain Walgreens does not want the negative press of not using local labor and receiving tax exemption. So they're going to make sure that this is going to be positive for them as well.
Agreed. But I will say that wasn't mentioned in their response. It was just saying, no, we completely understand that. We value that. We respect that. You do what you have to do. We'll give you, they told me who to work with, actually, on this form, this Greg Shirey, who I spoke to at length this morning. He was terrific about it. He did make it clear that it's the GC that they're using that would find, that would work with local contractors. So I said, well, I'm happy to talk to them too. I want to talk to anyone who, same thing what we did with the first project we approved, this board did, Green Thumb Industries, GTI, the cannabis manufacturer. I went out on site with, at the time, Loki Brill to meet the GC because, in my opinion, just from being an observer over the past several years, I think sometimes you have the company comes and applies to us, and, you know, looking for our support in that regard, they receive it. But then it doesn't, that message, the spirit of complying with that policy doesn't always make its way through to the GC. So I went out, in this case, it was Whiting Turner with the CM out there at GTI in Warwick, and I said just that. I said, Rebecca Brown from GTI, she applied, she appeared, she had to be part of the public hearing, all these things. So I want to make sure you accept that same, you know, spirit from them, because they won't get their incentives unless you comply. And I just thought it was the better way to start off, making sure they're very clear upfront expectations, and they were great about it. You know, sometimes they don't find out about that, and you blame the applicant, but they don't, the GC, the CM, they don't find out about it until Loki Brill or Lance case comes up, right? And they're like, oh, you want a driver's license and such? So I want to make sure we start the right way and everyone's clear about the policy and how we
The relationship business, a lot of times those GCs may not have the relationship locally.
Sure.
Well,
Yeah, but currently, are they using local labor? I mean, are they using?
So right now, Walgreens hasn't done their portion of it. Right now, there's a major development company that's building the buildings, a matrix development. They built the one you see off the thruway, Amerisource, Bergen, Amscan is the sign you can see. They're co-tenants there. Major developer who was successful here and came back, which we're happy to. And they're not receiving any IDA benefits or anything like that.
To answer your question, there's a lot of local guys working there.
Absolutely.
Tons of local suppliers. You can just watch the project and you see, I mean, I know half the guys that are working there, you know, it's great.
Absolutely. Did PLA with you, with,
No.
the local laborers? Okay.
No, they're using all kinds of.
Yes.
Oh, they sure are.
All kinds
Sure
of
are.
guys, yeah.
But it's not, to be clear, it's not Walgreens, but that is the developer that's building the building that they're going to lease. They have been, it's been a very local project, yeah.
But maybe we can, close that gap a little bit. Say there's a GC or whatever, and said that they don't know, they can get a list of local contractors, whatever, and they'll have them to bid or whatever, or if they have a contractor who's out of the area, let them know where to, you know, where they can find workers.
Sure.
To fulfill those
Yeah,
items.
there's more of a worker thing, let alone a company thing.
Yeah.
The other thing I would ask is timeframe wise, I don't know what the answer to this is, but I know that I always worry about stressing capacity or the bandwidth of all our board members.
Mhm.
So one of the things I would ask, and I don't know if it's capable, is if we're gonna have this done within the next whole week or two or three, do we add an audit committee meeting to the night of our regular board meeting, because we're all gonna be here?
Mm.
Just a possibility, it eliminates having to come back for a 5-minute meeting or a 10-minute meeting. Go
I
over
would
stuff.
say no, because
It might be too soon.
well, and it's too much. You know, you have OCFC and IDA, which can run long and wordy, and then you want to add another meeting on top of the meeting. We tried the one doing it at 4:30, and we were all hungry monsters at the end of that.
But it does, I would say it does depend upon how deep the agenda is.
Correct.
And I think this
And time.
would be a
And time.
later month. I just want to make sure we have enough time, that's all,
Yeah.
for the 19th, which is, you know.
And getting back to when you guys talked about the kids, whatever, like licensing or whatever, I mean, I'm sure the guys have. Is there, the last thing I wanted to ask is that, would the board or whoever, because I was, you know, somebody had asked me, is that, would you entertain somebody coming in and making this decision, say, listen, we've done this, and you hear both sides of whatever that issue is, if it came down to that? You know, would you listen to, would you have time for, we talked about, speak or not, or, you know, let them tell us what they've done and what they've done in other areas. He had said he's met with, maybe it's not with us, maybe it's just with you, maybe it's with the Walgreens people, I don't know, but
Yeah.
is that something that?
I mean, that's what I plan to do. If you want to do it at a meeting, that's something we could talk about. What I'm going to be seeking is that hopefully, ideally, we get Walgreens on the same page as well, where they agree, or if they challenge it, that, you know, if this board agrees and Walgreens doesn't, I mean, the board dictates it, frankly. So I would just hope that we have some, you know, we're on the same page.
One thing I would just be cautious of, and I know you said it once, but I would just be cautious of giving any lists. Because as a government entity, we're not supposed to be giving that type of stuff.
Right.
You know, I mean, there are organizations out there that do that for a living. There are, whether they're membership organizations or economic development of any sort, I think as a government entity, or semi-government, or whatever we want to call it, we have to be careful of that. Because you don't want to just say, hey, here's our list. It's not really our list. You know, it's,
Right.
there's opportunities out there, there's people to speak with. You should do your due diligence, maybe get somebody, you know, approved or not approved, but it really comes down to the hiring of the individual workers that are going to show up at the
Absolutely.
job. It's not really.
It's not about an Orange County-based firm. It's about
It's not the people.
Maybe what I said was.
No, I'm not saying you said.
Is that if a GC or whatever was looking for a company, then they would get a list from anywhere, right? And then maybe there's a list of others that they can, that's all, they would, not you. I didn't mean the IDA would involve any of that. But the point that if they were looking, listen, there's a direction you may look for, you know, not, whether companies or companies that you used to look. Yeah, not for the IDA, absolutely not.
I think,
They don't want to be misunderstood.
I think the IDA can be a resource for GCs and stuff. We're not telling you who to hire. We're not, you know, that's between an employer and employee. And like you said, there are lists out there, but there's no reason that we can't also have that kind of resource for companies. Outside of, you know, what kind of incentives they're getting and not incentives, the whole idea is industrial development. And if we can provide that, whether it be for public on a website, be that, because that's what we're about, is creating that kind of opportunity.
So first of all, I agree with, again, the spirit of that, because, I mean, that's how I try and approach my work in this business, is being, but I do appreciate Michael's comments in that if we're providing that list, then it's on us if someone's missing from that list, and we're not constantly updating that list. So, you know, I do think that's worth discussing how we do that. And that's one of the things I've been trying to figure out how we'll execute that, because with the former board, it was Michael Gatos, who was a board member, a Ironworkers Union member, and I've heard by all accounts, Loki Brill, the staff, Kelly, and others, that he was a great resource in that sense, where he would try and connect them, not just union labor, to open shop, whatever it might be. So I would like to try and find another resource that's outside of us, but someone we depend on, that we you know, trust, that could help be a resource in that regard. But open shop is what we've had this discussion a few times. Open shop is where it's a little more challenging. To me, the only group I can think of is the Orange County Partnership, because they have as members, or maybe the Construction Contractors Association. That's not all union, right?
Yeah.
CCA?
It's kind of in our policy, you know, construction.
They're all union,
Contract.
CCA?
But there's all the Construction Contractors Association.
Yeah.
You know.
Locally? Who else? Just
I mean, there's others that may have their own. But you don't want to miss an opportunity, or I don't, to have local people, period. Whether
No,
it's one side or the
I mean,
other.
what would be a
it's
nice
local people.
data point would be to figure out, maybe through the County Department of Labor, State Department of Labor, is the workforce numbers. How many electricians are in the workforce? How many carpenters? How many plumbers? You could tell somebody, hey, in this catchment area, there are, I guess, probably over 100,000 workers in this industry.
Right.
You know? So if you need to get 60 people on this job, there's a big pool to pull from. Now, it's great, a guy's gonna be working, gal's gonna be working, those type of things, but there's a pool of people who are educated and are trained, you know, so maybe if you have those, I don't wanna say, it could be annual, it could be every 5, you know, whatever that number is, maybe it's a report from DOL, whether state, local, or whatever, that would have that, so that they would know, you know, we're not in the middle of nowhere, we're not in, you know, in an area that has no employees, we're in an area that is employee rich. From our, I'll say our labor market, or the extended labor market.
Right.
And that's one of the things I think that as a future thing, we may want to consider, and I don't know if it comes under, I don't think it comes under audit, it probably comes under governance, that we want to change any rules. We talked about a couple months back about maybe expanding our catchment to include Delaware, because it's one of the least expensive counties to live in, and many of our people have done that northern migration to live up there on a full-time basis. And you don't want to discount people that have ties here, but literally are less than an hour away.
Right.
You know, I know it's not in our economic development zone, but it's something to think about, because it's a more affordable place to live, and a lot of people have moved that way. I can say
We go
that
as far as
well,
Westchester.
yeah.
And larger projects up in that area as well.
Yeah.
casino with, and there are larger projects up there, and then when that happens, like, just exactly like I said, they might live here, but they've worked here for so long, they end up moving up.
Yeah, so it's something to think about, not in this committee, but it's something that.
So I was gonna say, because we're getting away from audit now, so maybe we should just wrap this up.
Exactly, but we could deal with that in governance, really amending the local labor policy to include that and any other, you know. I'm gonna do my homework, and I'll come back. Timing, let me look at the agenda for the 19th and see if that works, but otherwise, we'll find the right time to
Okay.
resume. I'll also make sure I'm very clear with Walgreens on their timing, so that we're not holding them off, holding them back, you know, in any way. But I'll make sure I do all my homework there, and
We're gonna table this item?
Yes.
I'll need to vote to do so.
Yeah, I used to think that there is a source somewhere where you can get labor, area of specialization, like having electricians. There should be a way somewhere where that information, I know that information will be available somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, the county website has a list of licensed electricians and licensed electrical companies. That's right at the county website.
I mean, listen, again, the building trades have a website.
I mean, it's really the GC's responsibility.
You don't have to
Pick
go
a
there,
contract.
you don't have to go there, but I mean, it's a resource.
Or pick a subcontract, whatever it is.
So
It's
maybe
not
a
our
link
job.
to on our website to that.
But again, I would, you know, that would be great. for me.
Right, we're
But
digressing.
I think Mike's thing is, then, you know, make the contact. So.
Don't believe we need to vote to table it.
It's just an open item.
Yeah.
Yeah,
let's just keep it open.
it wasn't even really an agenda item, it was the last minute, so we don't need to, that.
Okay.
I will make a motion, though, to dismiss or adjourn, whichever language you prefer.
Second.
Second, Mr. Sterling?
All those in favor?
Hey.
Aye.
All right. Committee meeting with the Orange County County Corporation, OCIDA, is over.